Hello and welcome to CTV News Across Canada for Friday, July 25th. We've got the top local stories from coast to coast, stories that affect you and the country. Thanks for joining us.
Representatives from at least a dozen sex assault centres gathered in support of EM, the alleged victim, who maintains what happened in a London, Ontario hotel room in 2018 made her feel she didn't have a choice. Some saying they're disappointed by the judge's ruling and that the system is not designed for survivors. Carleton University sexual violence prevention coordinator worries the high-profile nature of the case could make other victims more reluctant to come forward.
I think this just goes to show that, the burden of proof in the criminal justice system, that beyond a reasonable doubt is not a reasonable expectation for sexual violence. And it's difficult. I understand we're talking about the potential of somebody going to jail. But at the end of the day, I think we need to reframe what we expect for accountability in sexual violence and think about, is beyond a reasonable doubt really the right measure to find accountability?
Some legal experts say the trial showed flaws in how sexual assault complaints are handled, pointing to the 9 days of cross-examination and questioning EM was subjected to.
It seems instead that she found it was a case of actual consent, that EM had actually consented, and that means that she believed that EM, wasn't telling the truth in the courtroom. And I think that's a really hard thing for survivors to hear, and it echoes what many people think about the criminal justice system and sexual assault law.
Other legal experts add that regardless of the outcome, the verdict doesn't erase concerns about hockey culture and the power dynamics that can exist, and that what's legal doesn't mean what happened is morally acceptable. Now, this isn't necessarily the last chapter. When leaving the courtroom today, the Crown saying her team will carefully review the judge's decision to determine whether or not to appeal.
Deepak Sharma enters a Halifax courtroom to plead guilty to 3 charges, 2 counts of fleeing the scene of a collision and criminal negligence causing the death of Alexandria Wortman. Sharma first rear-ended a vehicle on Jubilee Road January 27th at about 5:45 p.m. After stopping initially, he fled, striking the driver in the hip. That driver took a photo of Sharma's Civic and called 911. Sharma took off, going 126 kilometers per hour, nearly hitting an oncoming vehicle before striking Wortman at a marked crosswalk and 4-way stop.
The speed speaks for itself. That's a 50-kilometer-an-hour zone, and he accelerated from 0 to 126 kilometers an hour and struck Miss Wortman with his motor vehicle when he was going that fast down Jubilee.
Wortman's family wept as agreed facts were read in court. She was wedged into his windshield for a few blocks, from Jubilee and Vernon to Jubilee and Roby, as Sharma kept driving erratically through the neighborhood, swerving and passing vehicles until a third collision 5 minutes later with a parked vehicle where Wortman fell to the ground.
Many people from within that neighborhood came forward, provided statements, provided videos from their doorbell cameras, their security systems, etc.
Bystanders attempted to help at the scene of the third collision, but Sharma screamed obscenities at them, threatened to kill someone, and charged at one person. Police found Sharma doing push-ups, but he pushed them away and ran before being arrested, appearing disoriented, giggling, and physically resisting officers. As a result of his guilty pleas, a manslaughter charge was dropped. An impaired driving charge was previously withdrawn. A joint recommendation between the Crown and Defence will be coming.
I think it's fair to say that the sentencing ranges in Canada for what our American cousins would call vehicular manslaughter are quite low.
Wortman suffered a long list of blunt force traumas, including a skull fracture, a fractured part of her spine, and fractures to her ribs and pelvis. Sharma will be sentenced September 22nd, when many victim impact statements will be read. Callum Smith, CTV News, Halifax.
Not only that, but Environment Canada expects it to heighten this weekend with the hot and humid weather sticking around. Much of that is heat coming from the southern U.S., from humid climates like Florida. And what's more challenging is that there's little to no reprieve at night, especially as these heat events tend to linger around longer.
When you're getting this southerly air with lots of humidity day after day, and you add smoke to it from western fires, which is clearly another trend in our weather, is we're seeing more smoky environments. And then you see that it's not very healthy. I mean, fit and athletic people can handle it, but not the majority of the population. Everybody's kind of vulnerable.
And Philip says we can expect to see more of this as the summer continues, and with the trends for the climate increasingly getting hotter, it means that communities will have to take notice and start implementing more cooling centers for 24/7 periods. Reporting live, I'm Christian Davino.
Oh my God, it's Hulk Hogan!
Hulk Hogan's legacy is tied to wrestling, of course, but ever the performer. He also took his trademark horseshoe mustache and bandanas to the music world and to TV and movie screens.
The ultimate male versus the ultimate meatball.
Including in Rocky III, that propelled him to stardom. Hogan was born Terry Jean Bolea in Georgia, the son of a construction worker and a dance teacher. He built that massive physique and earned his stage name. As fellow wrestlers commented, he was bigger than Lou Ferrigno, who played Hulk on TV.
Look at this!
He then slammed his way to the very top of worldwide wrestling stardom, at his peak defeating Andre the Giant with a body slam. He often leaned into the ring persona of a flag-waving, heroic All-American.
Eat your vitamins, be true to yourself, true to your country, be a real American.
Though he also later played a villain, as both he had fans around the globe, including Montreal, where in 1997, Jacques Rougeau became the only Canadian wrestler to land a win against Hogan.
The greatest of all times, Hulk Hogan. And I love you, Hulk.
Rougeau last saw his friend 6 months ago as they signed championship belts.
He signed it in my name. He says, "You're the only one who beat me in Canada." He says, "You deserve this belt."
Hogan was admired by many, but faced several controversies. In 1994, he was forced to admit in court to years of steroid use and later to apologize for a racist rant caught on video. Through it all, though, his superstardom in and out of the ring remained embedded in pop culture. Hogan died at the age of 71 of cardiac arrest. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News, Montreal.
34-year-old Andrew Denny Lynch recalls riding his motorcycle on Highway 440 at 3 a.m. in September 2024. Police pulled him over, but before he even stopped, he says the police cruiser rear-ended him.
And then they see it get rammed, and me flying off the bike about, like I said, 10 feet. It was a scary moment.
Injured and on the ground, Denny Lynch says an officer jumped on him.
Getting kicked, kneed, banging the head.
Denny Lynch was handcuffed but was released without charges. He was given 8 tickets totaling $3,000 for offenses including speeding, failure to identify himself, not signaling a lane change, and not having proper lights. Accusations he denies. The officers, he said, ignored his injuries.
So I just had to call an ambulance.
Denny Lynch says he was contacted by the Laval Police's Internal Affairs Department, but he also reached out to the Centre for Research Action for Race Relations for guidance, which helped him to file formal complaints.
And the reason why we decided to act and go public and also get the complaints to the Police Ethics Commissioner and the Human Rights Commission ready is that the clock is ticking.
When contacted by CTV News, Laval Police confirmed the incident and that one of the officers has been suspended. The Laval Police Department confirms that a criminal investigation started following the intervention. The file was submitted to the DPCP, and the officer in question is currently suspended from duty. A disciplinary investigation in this matter is still ongoing. Denny Lynch says he now hopes there will be consequences for the officers involved.
I don't want this to happen to anybody. Like, no vehicle should be hitting a motorcycle. That's very dangerous.
Denny Lynch says he's lucky to be alive, but adds the trauma hasn't gone away. Stéphane Giroux, CTV News.
This is the busiest weekend of the year.
Baseball fans from this side of the border will be flocking to Comerica Park to see the Toronto Blue Jays take on the Detroit Tigers, two of the best teams in Major League Baseball.
This is going to add at least a few hundred more vehicles to each day, up to 1,000, again, depending on who's pitching.
Come September, the tunnel bus is done, while the special events bus will cease operations in December.
If we had some type of vehicle that could transport people the 2 kilometers or less than 2 kilometer radius back and forth over the tunnel that's constantly going, we would see more people coming over here and more people would go over there and we'd connect better with our downtowns.
This might be a solution. This here is a 5-passenger GEM car, which is already deployed in Detroit.
This vehicle is a microtransit service that is operating across North America as we speak.
With the use of an app, the vehicle can pick up a group and take them through the tunnel to their destination.
We're looking to work with local partners that would be interested in supplying, personnel that would be able to fill these vehicles with drivers.
Josipa Petronich is a leader in transportation and energy systems and says killing the bus is more than a labor discussion. She feels losing the bus kills a huge technology deployment opportunity.
It means it is the only place in North America where we could test speed-controlled autonomous bus shuttles, speed-controlled autonomous buses, integrated across 2 countries for interoperability and standardization. This is game-changing.
Petronich feels Windsor-Detroit could integrate automated technology faster than the auto sector and says there is an opportunity for Windsor to seek funding the government already declared will be made available through the Canada Public Transit Fund.
This is a transit opportunity. It's also an opportunity to get the kind of operational support for Windsor that it needs in order to deploy not just technologically advanced transit, but just sustainable transit in the tunnel.
So whether it's the city or government stepping up with funding or even a startup company, there are solutions and options. Maybe what it'll take is having city officials from both sides of the border sit down at a table to hash out a solution that will work for both sides and both downtowns.
It really all happened quite quickly within the period of a couple of hours last evening.
Fire officials say the fire intensified yesterday afternoon, and despite using helicopters and water bombers, things just got too dangerous. Crews were then forced to retreat to safe zones, returning to the area once it was safe. The fire also damaged some hydro lines, but the power is still on for now. The Manitoba Wildfire Service says the fire became unpredictable quickly.
They were definitely planning for something to happen in the community. They had a good plan, but unfortunately the fire's behavior yesterday was very, very intense. Crews talked about how the fire was essentially creating its own weather, and there was all this additional wind and heat, and the movement of the fire was just really, really rapid.
$500 million loan that Algoma Steel is asking of the federal government comes 50 days after Donald Trump doubled U.S. tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum to 50%. With the majority of the Sault Ste. Marie company's business done south of the border, it's had significant impacts. In a statement, the steelmaker addressed the wake those tariffs are having and the need for government support. Quote, Algoma has sufficient resources on hand to manage its liquidity over the near term. However, given the ongoing uncertainty caused by the U.S. tariffs resulting in a structural imbalance in the Canadian market, the company is considering various alternatives to bolster liquidity. Without this loan, union officials at the steel plant believe they could be heading down a dark path.
I think it's going to get to the point where there'll be a lot more layoffs, and they're going to have to look at the products they make and sell and how they manage to stay afloat on a smaller scale.
Algoma CEO Michael Garcia is calling on the government for quick action. Quote, we are taking a measured and disciplined approach to evaluating the implications of sustained trade barriers. We continue to call for timely, prudent policy support to ensure Canadian steelmakers can remain viable contributors to the national interest. With the right frameworks in place, we are confident Algoma will emerge from this period as a vital part of Canada's nation-building agenda. A spokesperson for the federal Minister of Finance says in a statement, quote, we're engaged in daily discussions with our steel partners, Algoma included, working together on a shared response to tariffs that encompasses the changing market dynamics and the reality of what is happening on the ground. Union officials remain hopeful that the federal government will approve Algoma Steel's $500 million loan application, saying the government has been there in the past during times of financial trouble. Slater adds that they would like to see the workers and not just the company benefit from any taxpayer dollars heading towards the steelmaker. Corey Nordstrom, CTV News, Sault Ste. Marie.
Taking a trip to our neighbors down south has become less appealing for Canadians. According to a new Statistics Canada report, return trips from the United States by Canadian citizens fell nearly 32% in May compared to last year. For some, it's because of the Canadian dollar.
I think it's mainly due to our dollar, right? The strength of it, or I guess the lack of strength.
It's too expensive to go to the States. You can't afford it.
For others, it's because of Donald Trump and the political tension between the two countries.
Trump can take his 51st state. No, we're not. It's not happening. Canada, strong. We're staying here.
It doesn't feel welcoming and safe right now, I guess.
Travel agent Megan Duncan says decreased demand has resulted in airlines reducing U.S.-bound flights.
Yeah, just overall demand for sure is affecting the airlines wanting to keep the frequency up.
The Statistics Canada report also shows more Canadians are choosing to travel overseas, with a nearly 9% increase in May.
I mean, Europe is always major in the summer. That hasn't slowed down really at all. People are still doing their big bucket list Europe summer trips.
Duncan has also noticed more people traveling within borders.
I think people are kind of shifting their quicker weekend or 5-day trips to kind of Eastern Canada or Vancouver kind of area. So
with summer festivals like Taste of Edmonton and K-Days, Edmontonians we spoke to say there's plenty to explore in our own backyard.
I would like to travel around Edmonton and just our area because we have so much to see and there's so much to offer, so you may as well check it out while you can.
Phenomenal. It's lots of festivals and activities. Yeah, it's a great place to be.
Nav Sanga, CTV News, Edmonton.
Help is on the way for firefighters battling the 15 out-of-control wildfires burning in northern Saskatchewan. The Federal Minister of Emergency Management and Community Resilience answered a request late Wednesday afternoon from the provincial government for 300 firefighters and a number of helicopters.
The resources that we have trained in the province have appeared to have been maxed out, and we are still in a need to get more due to the fire situation.
Nearly 24 firefighters from New Brunswick have already landed, and another 41 from Quebec are on the way. Pritchard says the rest will arrive by Saturday. For weeks, officials and politicians said military help wasn't needed because Ottawa didn't have what Saskatchewan needed, despite Manitoba calling for help nearly 2 months ago.
There's never been not a requirement or a need to use the federal assistance. It really is around right resources at the right time.
The news release yesterday came out on July 23rd. There's no reason in my mind and in my belief that this shouldn't have said May 23rd.
McPhail says leaders up north were calling for help back then, and even if it was denied, a request should have been made. Pritchard says the fires have always dictated the call for help, and the flames were simply too hot and dangerous. But progress in recent weeks now allows firefighters to be moved around, and help is needed.
It is really unfortunate, and it really is sad to see the divisive messaging that is going out right now.
Incoming firefighters will help control or extinguish smaller fires in 2 different areas. So far, a request for sprinklers, hoses, and water haulers hasn't been answered. An estimated 1.8 million hectares have burned this wildfire season, which is roughly the size of Fiji. Keenan Sorakan, CTV News, Saskatoon.
Saskatchewan exports to the U.S. are down significantly so far this year, and experts suspect that Trump tariffs are playing a role.
You know, the concern is obviously that is this a permanent fixture? Is this something that's occurring because of the trade tariffs? And, you know, it would seem likely that's the case, but it'll take more months to, definitively prove exactly what's happening.
The Statistics Canada report points to several sectors of the Saskatchewan economy that are being hardest hit.
When you look at the components of it, a part of it is to do with potash and uranium. So the trade is down at the start of the year here compared to last year. Same goes for agricultural products. That's part and parcel of it. The one that might be most distressing from my perspective is a lot of our manufacturing products, okay, that we've been shipping to the United States, okay, it's down quite significantly. It's between 20 and 30%.
Exports to other countries are up 6% so far this year, so efforts at market diversification appear to be working. The province also points to other positive economic indicators, like the lowest unemployment rate in Canada and creation of 20,000 additional jobs over the past year. The NDP opposition believes the province cannot ease pressure on the U.S.
Mo put American booze back on liquor store shelves 3 days before steel tariffs doubled, despite what these job losses will mean for Evraz. He abandoned his promise to end contracts with American companies after failing to provide evidence of canceling a single one.
Trump tariffs change frequently, and negotiations toward a trade agreement continue. Experts say it could take until September to determine whether lower Saskatchewan exports to the U.S. will be an ongoing situation. Wayne Mantika, CTV News, Regina.
The recent shooting death of Madison Cobb in a Haysboro parkade is sparking calls for change. Her ex-boyfriend, Devin Bradley Malik, is charged with first-degree murder even though Cobb had a restraining order against him.
She did everything that she was supposed to do. She got out, she got the protection order, she got all of it, and it still wasn't enough. Our laws are just not strict enough.
A community rally is set up for this weekend.
Really, the whole point of it is to be able to raise awareness about the change that needs to happen. Everybody can do something to be able to end this cycle.
Malik's family says he continued to obsess over and harass Cobb. He was even GPS tracking her car despite the court order to stay away. He was also charged with criminal harassment before her death. But advocates say more could have been done.
Often when someone pursues a restraining order or protection order, they're pursuing it because it's their only avenue. But if there was coercive control legislation, there might be an avenue that actually allows the police to lay charges, which then puts that perpetrator into a different place in terms of how the system is going to watch them.
Canadian lawmakers were close to passing a law that would make coercive control a criminal offense. But it died when the election was called, and the fate of this bill and several others is unknown until Parliament resumes in the fall.
I think that this does need to be on Canada's front burner, and I do think that it needs to be addressed. I'd like to see it addressed sooner than later.
With Cobb's death now before the courts, Calgary Police will only say in a statement, "We support any measures that enhance public safety and our ability to protect the community. Additional legal tools that recognize and address this form of abuse could strengthen our efforts to support victims and hold offenders accountable." In May, the province announced a 10-year plan to end gender-based violence with an emphasis on prevention. Questions about strengthening surveillance of violators of restraining orders and protection orders were not answered in time for our deadline.